deals with the women at work in Vietnam. It's merely a cursory glimpse, not an in-depth study, but I thought you might like to know a bit about their homes, their customs, and even the work that they do. A little bit of a feel and an acquaintance with the women on this side of the world. I will indicate the changing of frames with a small click, such as this. Women at work in Vietnam. Slide 1. This is a bird's eye view of Saigon, and it's just such a brief glimpse of the following on the women at work here. While news recently has centered on the seat of government, particularly the selection and inauguration of the occupant of this presidential palace, I'd like you to take a quick look at a few members of the distant side. Note something of the work they do, learn a bit about their customs, their homes, their families. Women of Vietnam are petite and dainty as a general rule, slightly slanted of eye, dark of skin, and they have black hair. These sisters wear the traditional dress called an áo dài, with quongs, the trousers, beneath the front panels. Here they are white quongs. Frequently you'll see girls of a family dressed alike, just as these two are. Quongs are either black or white. Western attire was seldom noted on the street when I first arrived, but you see it quite often now. The young lady on the left is Chinese, and many of them wear Western dress. These girls work in the USO office. You can see the mini skirt is here. To admit, some of these girls look a little bit nicer than some of our girls. Please note the ubiquitous carrying pole with buckets on either end called the dangan, which these dainty creatures carry laden with all sorts of things. Here, Emily carries water to supply our broken down system. This might well be appropriately subtitled Women at the Well. Doris Dove, our physical therapist, and twice Lynn Size, decides to give it a try, but she can barely lift it off the ground. Now, I had a much easier time, as you can see. Of course, Doris yelled, "Fraud!" The buckets were empty. Here is another dangan. This woman wears the quong and blouse, pajama-style workday uniform. Actually, they usually sleep in them too. Fresh garments in the afternoon, and you sleep and go to work the next morning. The conical straw hat is called a nun la. It's also traditional for men as well as women, and it's very good for the sun or the rain. The áo dài in the background completes this traditional picture in black and white. But they're changing. This is the way Vietnamese sit. Rest, visit, work, cook, eat. Try it sometime. Women here like beautiful flowers, and Tet, their Lunar New Year celebration, the big event of the year, finds many busy markets such as this as women plan their home decorations. Hospital visits are made here too. This is the distinguished French hospital, Nha Tung Gra. It differs from the Vietnamese hospital in that there relatives usually accompany the patient to help care for and feed them, maybe even sleep under the beds. Even here you'll note that food is being brought in. See that metal tier can? It usually is carried along the street with food for the man at work. And then the plastic bag has some little goodies too. Market scenes are a daily occurrence. Saigon is noted for its French bread. Upcountry, people refer to it as Saigon bread, and every plane heading that way has numerous loaves carried aboard by passengers. The bread is delivered in those big baskets, such as you see there, and then it's kept warm over charcoal coals as it lays on that other basket. Frequently it is wrapped in discarded computer printout paper, other cast-off paper items, sold as is, even occasionally placed in cellophane wrappers. It is very good. The basketry, by the way, is a diminishing native craft. Many of them are very lovely. Co-workers and career girls. Cotian and Ruth Yoder, nurses, work in our clinic nearby. The bicycle is still a major mode of transportation. Even Hondas and cars, however, are still operated on the bicycle concept. But career girls are still a new idea to many families. A more accepted vocation is domestic service. And M. Leon makes a real contribution to her family. She worked for us part-time for a while, then served with an American, made lots of money, but when he took unto himself a Vietnamese mistress, and then when he wanted her to work in, she decided she didn't like that. She sure would like to work for MDM again. She presently now is re-employed. And women here love to go shopping too. M. Leon. M is the word meaning younger or child. And Chi Nam. Chi is the term used for the servant or for an older sister or a very close friend. But M. Leon and Chi Nam are no exception. They're off on their way to the local market. Now, a rather cursory survey of the vocational endeavors engaged in by the women of Vietnam's capital city. This is very limited. Practically everything deals with people here in Saigon. I did not cover Montagnard people or people in the provinces. These are almost all, with very rare exceptions, right here in and around Saigon. Now viewing slide number 17. Probably most typical would be the market scenes, with all sorts of produce available at counters, on curbing, dark warrens. If you haven't been in an Asian market, you will have trouble imagining it, but it's very colorful and it's smelly too. On the other hand, it's sort of a combination supermarket and a department store as we know them. Each neighborhood has its local market in operation, rain or shine. Then the large central market is downtown. The transportation system is set up on market routes from one to another, or from a local one to the central market via lambretas, which are three-wheeled vehicles carrying 10 passengers each. Vietnamese passengers, that is. An inner view of the market, and this is the meat section. Note the bundle of paper on the ground. That's the packaging. If my maid buys and prepares this meat, I can eat it without really thinking too much about it. but I have yet to purchase any myself. Watching the flies, the dirty knives, and the hands picking over it is a little less than appealing to me as yet. Sanitation, as a whole, leaves something to be desired, as observed here. Not only is garbage dumped in certain spots, such as this, but everywhere. Sidewalks, curbs, restaurants, just any place. Now, this happens to be a major thoroughfare, and until very recently, garbage extended over 2 lanes. The Vietnamese are great scavengers, too, and every pile is thoroughly searched, maybe once or twice. But there is improvement, and you can see who does the job. These are public servants, and with a sense of humor. They got a big kick out of my taking their pictures, and they were such a mess with their grimy boots and gloves and quongs. They didn't even want to stop and comb their hair. This is a private concern. The women here are really liberated. And there are Saigon street cleaners. A view of the other end of the cart. How you like that broom, too. At least it's longer than the household type, which comes to about to my waist. Speaking of streets, this one needs and is receiving repair by a woman. She had occasional male supervision when it wasn't raining. Here is a small field, tended and watered. The peculiar device is the water pump, and there are irrigation canals beside each row, which this woman will carry the water to and fill. Note the various types of produce. It's a beautiful field. And fruit is gathered from the numerous tropical trees. On our property alone, where this picture was taken, were guava. This is where the girls are now, in the guava tree. Milk fruit, mangoes, papaya, fig, star fruit, and of course bananas. Not the Iceman, but the next best thing, or should I say, better yet. They have a very interesting instrument which they use to cut these blocks of ice. That gal in the red atop the truck is the service station attendant. She's really up on her work. A popular trade is that of dressmaking. The ao dai is complex, and sewing machines as yet are not a household fixture. Electric ones are even less numerous. Thelma Ma, the NCS physical therapist, she's also a Methodist, by the way, brought her unique problem this Easter morn. She needed a specific outfit. A lab coat was decided on to wear when she was presented the government award for her contribution to the welfare of the Vietnamese people. Can we do it with this pair of pillowcases? Yes, we really did. Our neighborhood seamstress, who made an outfit for the woman that I struck with my car. And this one receives a commission from my domestic staff. Emlyn, Chi Tu, and Chi Nam wanted a uniform. And this is the finished product. Their Christmas gift, as requested. Because when we had company, all of us dressed up. Looked very nice, they thought. And so they wanted to be dep, too, when company came. Emlyn, Chi Nam, Chi Tu, and Chi Ba wear their pretty new blue coats, which they designed themselves. By the way, the names, Chi Nam is the number 5, which means she was child number 6, because the number 1 is not used. The spirits might not like them to do that, or they might even pay too much attention to a child. That is number one. Two is the number four, and Ba is number three. All really have legal family names, but men as well as women are so designated, and combined with the fact that there are only some 30 or 40 family names in the country, identification is hardly distinctive. Lian indicates a trend of the younger toward eliminating the number bit. The washerwoman throws up her hands again. The electricity is out. Then there are big jobs, like a new airport terminal, and women on the scaffold do their bit, as well as look jaunty. These are preparing the iron grill work for a new house next door. And this is the new house. The ground floor most likely will serve as a shop and or a garage in the front, plus living quarters. And the upstairs might well house several other families, Vietnamese style. The house is narrow and longer than it is wide. Land is hard to find and expensive, especially when you have several million people in a small area. Saigon has a population density second only to Tokyo. But here the river is free, so homes on stilts above the water provide for many, with appropriate transportation. A through street with houses, flag bedecked for national holiday. Off each main street are many alleyways, such as this, where you find whole villages. Locating an address in Saigon is a major accomplishment in many instances. All are numbered, often 3 or 4 different numbers, and alleyways are 5/41, which means alley 5 off of a certain street, and house number 41. No mail deliveries or newspapers are made in our area, and the Saigon postal system as such could stand improvement. An overturned lamp can wreak havoc in such dwellings in a moment's time. There are some lovely, secluded homes also, as this one, surrounded by the fence and blooming frangipani. Mdem, our guest house in the suburb of Yaden. Less substantial, as well as less desirable, are shelters such as this. Similar lean-tos served as squatters' huts for disgruntled veterans for a time, provoking clashes between them and the authorities. Many have since been burned down. Saigon is a city teeming with people. Many refugees from the north, even a decade ago. Refugees continue to be a problem. And this camp, some 20 miles outside Saigon, is now home for countless Vietnamese driven from Cambodia last year. This is the Cu Chi refugee camp. Even off the alleys are other residences such as this, where effort has been made to keep clean and to beautify. She too lives here with her 5 children, her mother, and brothers. Her husband is in the service. This is the kitchen in the home of my friend Kong Na. And note the wallpaper. Aluminum sheeting for beverage cans provides the decor. But many lean-tos, such as I showed you just before, use this material for their whole hut. The huge water jars provide for drinking, washing, cooking, and bathing. with the source being a well, often for the village, or a single water faucet used by all. This home is an old one, but spacious, even has a bit of ground, and houses several generations. Kim Lay, seated on the right, studied English with me, and her family invited me to celebrate my first Tet with them as their first guest. The family altar, part of every Buddhist home. Kim Lay and her grandmother have tea prepared, and Tet gifts are on the table. Along with everything else, Tet is birthday time, and Kim's dress is her birthday gift. Kim Lay proudly displays her bit of garden and flowers. Her home is located just outside of Saigon, and they're a very lovely family. Another family honors their grandmother, also with a Tet visit. This actually is a pagoda, and several elderly ladies live here, sort of an Buddhist old folks' home in one sense, but they welcomed us as friends of their children. Elders still receive reverence from the younger generations here, though, of course, sad to say, changes are underway there too. Upon entering a Vietnamese home, one is served tea almost immediately. Here, Mrs. Nguyen and daughter welcome us to their home. The teapot is a family heirloom, salvaged from their home in the north at the time of their exodus in 1954. They too have 3 generations in their small dwelling, 2 rooms and the lean-to kitchen you saw earlier. Grandmother and baby Fung pose on one of the beds in the front area. Traditionally, the eldest son brings his bride to his father's house. This too is changing under the onslaught of the times. Now a war widow, Ian, and her child will continue to live as a part of his family. M. Fung makes her first social call on me. With men off to the war, women have assumed heavy responsibilities in providing for their families, setting up small shops of every sort with meager supplies to eke out a living. This is a roadside service station, primarily for the Honda trade, and the gasoline has been scrounged, stolen, or liberated from the military. This woman has a customer. Notice the housing development in the background. This suburbanite set up shop on our front walk. In the background is one of those Lambretta buses I mentioned earlier. Also, children generally are carrying a smaller one around on their hip, even as this one is. A Vietnamese baby hardly touches the ground before 2 or 3 years of age. Well, that may be a slight exaggeration. This is a high-class stand, color-coordinated and rest room. Fishing is another small industry, and this is taking place in the Saigon harbor. Boat rentals and harbor tours are offered by this young lady and her navigator. Hui, 14, who also studied English with me, joins me for this. A lesson on oceans revealed that she and her brother had never been on the water, so we dined at the floating restaurant and availed ourselves of this boat tour service. This is Ba Ta, the unfortunate lady whom I struck with my automobile. And this is her means of livelihood, a sidewalk cigarette stand, plus a few other small items. She has 5 children, no husband, lives in a 1-room shack, which she shares with another woman and her baby, and a few rats. Sidewalk cafes aren't nearly as appealing and exotic as I had once imagined. and bakery goods isn't usually much more so. But I was fascinated by this operation. The woman is preparing banana fritters for the pedestrian trade. The bananas are peeled, halved, then she places the half in that green banana leaf and flattens it, places it in the batter, deep fries, and stacks the finished product for consumption by one satisfied customer, at least. So much now for small businesses. New and different careers are opening up for young women here. Meter maid type, for instance. When I first came, they didn't even have paid parking spaces. Tickets now, but still no meters yet. But this young lady will be in on the ground floor. And banking opened up new job opportunities. Here as cashiers and as receptionists and public relations women. Mrs. An is the manager of this shop, located at the Third Field Hospital, and her staff, plus this daughter, who is doing my hair, performs several types of services, such as wig care and pedicures. I even had one, my very first. Then there's always the Army. Shop owners, such as Ian here, offer specialties. This is the lacquer shop, where I've spent most of my money for gifts. This one is situated at the USO, but soon I am to visit her factory and view the designing and preparation of products. Lacquer is quite an art, each object requiring many months, even to years, for completion. This was the Vietnam Christian Service Montagnard craft shop, for which I had some responsibility, and the young woman who ran it for us, Wah Hum, whom we call Rose. Marlene's dress shop made ao dais for tourists and for mailing. Note also the unique shoes, Vietnamese dolls, Nun Blas, the conical hat, and ao dai material completed her stock. She too has a main factory elsewhere. Air Vietnam, the airline with the charming tradition, can only mean these stewardesses. Her principal job, on domestic side, is to lead the passengers across the runway to the proper plane. I'll tell you about our airline some other time. Office jobs are coveted. The Vietnamese seem to love sitting at a desk and writing away. This is our VNCS receptionist, Kim An, a very lovely girl, and bookkeeper, Becky Lin, who is Chinese, with her assistant, Kim Wan. Ko Hung, who is the secretarial pool for the upper floors. And this is our entire office staff. Seated is Ko Chow, our translator, and Ko Lai, a secretary. Lucille, at her desk in the USO accounting office, one of my friends there. The magazine and book sales lady, a very attractive and popular young lady at the USO stand. And this one is my cashier friend there. I really enjoyed working with these girls at the USO, and they became good friends, so I stop in frequently to visit them, even though our shop now is closed. One vocation that blossomed when our servicemen hit town was that of the bar girl, and proves a stigma on the normal family, while providing good money for the support of same. Even now, bars are closing. What will they do? Many originally planned to return home. Now it seems highly unlikely because of family acceptance and or the difference in income. Begging doesn't limit itself to men and children either, especially if you have leprosy, and Vietnam does, though both church and government have good control programs underway. A number of leprosariums are in operation also. Will you please turn the tape for slide number 94? Are Co Phi, Co Bit, and Co Hung of our VNCS staff. Of our VNCS staff. Of our slide 94. A very new profession in Vietnam is that of social work, and some of the loveliest workers are Co Phi, Co Bit, and Co Hung of the VNCS staff. Co Quinn, director of our Social Service Center number 2, is a Caritas graduate. Caritas is a Catholic institution that offered the only course in social work until the formation of the new National School of Social Work just last year. Here, preparations are underway for a VNCS conference on social work. You can see our Vietnamization program is well advanced in this area. As a result, Western personnel in this field are not being replaced as terminations come due. Teaching is an honored profession here too. Kung Ah, graduate of the University of Saigon School of Pedagogy, has just completed her first year as junior high teacher of English. Ba Yen, war widow, mother, and elementary teacher. For several years, she taught in rural areas and now is living in and teaching in Saigon. Slide 98. In the medical field, women have made contributions as physical therapists. This one is at National Rehabilitation Institute in Da Nang. As nurses in private hospitals, in government institutions such as Cho Quan Hospital's mental ward, which is where some of Vietnam's women work and others are confined. I visited our occupational therapist, Marge Dodge, at Cho Quan to observe her trainees in action. Ko Wah and Ko Hung were assisting in compiling a craft instruction book, stencils, artwork, and so forth, which Marge had prepared as a guide for their use when she left. Both young women have proved competent enough to continue the program. Final touch by Ko Hung, and there it is, Marge's first book, and in Vietnamese yet. For 4 years, director of VNCS's School of Nursing at Nha Trang, Nguyen Dam Cuc presently serves as supervisor of public health programs for VNCS. Women do participate in government and politics here, but I simply do not have any pictures. For instance, there are more than 6 women senators. One public official is Madam Pham Thi Thu, director of the new National School for Social Work, shown here with President Thieu on the occasion of the school's dedication. Women feed their families wherever they may be, at work, in the marketplace, or dinner parties in the home. This Vietnamese meal features soup, fried rice, green vegetables, rice and meat, shrimp chips, and chayas. That's a meat mixture rolled in white rice paper and fried. That's a very special treat. It's also sort of a Vietnamese hot dog. Then nuc mam. Don't forget nuc mam. That's a seasoning made from decayed fish. Ooh, it smells terrible. But it provides the salt and the protein. Weddings are significant events here, held on auspicious days, carefully selected, with the cars gaily decorated with flowers, and somber, sober brides. The bride must not smile on her wedding day. Following the ceremony, a feast is held at the groom's home, and the wife must serve some portion of the meal to each guest. I happen to be one of 3 Westerners invited to this particular affair. For this, a wedding cake, Western style, introducing Rose to new cultural thoughts and patterns for her East-West marriage. Plus, gifts reminiscent of home when living far away. Would you believe? An office baby shower luncheon. Women and religion. These worshippers are participating in the Buddhist rites for the dead. This is Saigon's principal pagoda, Chua Vinh Nghiem, home of the pro-government Buddhist faction. You'll notice a new hospital is being constructed. Buddhism is the principle of philosophy and religion of this country. And then there are youth rallies with special music, including this trio. These girls are Tin Lan, Vietnamese for good news, as the Protestant church is referred to here. These Catholic sisters are with the French order, and they work with young children in the area of education. They too have been studying English with me, and are most enjoyable characters. Chitu, our cook, is a Christian, and today she's heading for the women's meeting, all dressed up, and Honda's ready to go. These women get around. If it isn't by Honda or car, it could be by bicycle or motorized pedicab, as shown here. Or here is the family car. That peculiar looking vehicle is a Selam, the 3-wheeled passenger bus. Beside the Honda, there is also a 2-wheeled cart. And old cars. This one serves as a cross-country taxi. My father once wanted to know, where do all the old cars go? And I found out. Pedicabs are fun, but you are the bumper, and you sometimes wonder if you're going to make it through traffic. And your first air flight is apt to be an uncertainty, to say the least, especially if you've never been away from home. From a very traditional family, Ko Chow asked if her brothers couldn't accompany her on a 3-week stay at an interpreter's job. Not unusual for a very refined young lady, but no, sorry, you must go it alone. In the midst of busy traffic, this woman heads for the market in her Xe Como, which is this pony cart. With such a variety, and Honda after Honda after Honda darting in and out and roundabout, often with aoyais flying in the breeze, it's no wonder Saigon traffic is, to say the least, a hazard. Recreation may be swimming at this exclusive Vung Tau resort area on the South China Sea, attending a classical guitar concert at the Vietnamese American Association, or strolling in the park on Sunday with three beautiful nurses. Actual name is the Zoological and Botanical Gardens, and they're lovely. Vietnam is at war, and Vietnam's women probably suffer most, economically, financially, socially, and certainly emotionally, as they mourn husband, father, son, or brother. This is a traditional attire resembling somewhat our concept of sackcloth. The flag-draped coffin is flanked by a military honor guard who maintained all-night vigil with members of the family. The photograph of the deceased will be carried in the funeral procession by the eldest remaining son. Each article on the table relates to the Buddhist faith and ritual for honoring the dead. As the dress indicates, the widow, the white headbands indicate brothers, sisters, and cousins. In the extended family society, all are as brother and sister. The monks are wearing the saffron robes. It will take a while to fill the hole there in the ground and in the family circle and in the life of a nation. But woman waits. The joss sticks, the flowers, the fruit, symbols of their faith, must be appropriately placed. Meanwhile, another grave is being prepared by women grave diggers. Well, this woman who's working in Saigon, Vietnam, had better be about her business. I have a luncheon coming up, and I must get some work done. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy and appreciate a little more about the life of the women at work in Vietnam. Bye now. This is Ann Scow in Saigon.